Okay, so now I'd like to talk about paraprofessional support, and just to navigate in the IEP, it's on the page 15. Do you mind? So right on that page there. Okay. And we know he has paraprofessional support, and it's in Miss Woodward's class during the core academics, so reading, writing, math, science, social studies. But when Jeremy goes to specials, the para doesn't go with him. And he works with Miss Becky most of the day. And Miss Woodward, do you want to talk about just kind of what that paraprofessional is doing, what Miss Becky's doing?
Absolutely. So she's, with him during those core subjects, and she's not helping him with the academic skills. It's really when he fails to follow those directions and some of my initial attempts to redirect him while still giving instruction to the rest of the class aren't successful. So she is near him and is able to then help with some of those strategies of those reminders. We talked about the tapping, some of those kinds of things that I'm maybe not able to do at that time. Sure. But I think, so that's how she is operating with him in the classroom.
Yeah, I think not every day, but when he gets more frustrated, she also kind of reminds him like, hey, let's take a break. And there's the calming corner in your room. And she kind of goes over with him. And some students use that independently, but Miss Becky kind of helps coach him through some of the breathing that he does that cools him off. Yeah.
And that seems to go better for him. Every once in a while she'll pull him into the hallway like we talked about, because that's helpful. So it allows me to continue teaching and then gets him what he needs, and then, gets him back in a little more efficiently, which has been great.
And we talked about with his goal following instructions, that graph just shooting up, like he's made so much progress this year. And that's time in your room when instead of being off task, he's following her instructions and going with the flow of the group. So Miss Becky's actually been hanging back a little bit, because it's not, she wants to lean back as much as possible and let Jeremy just, be with his peers and fly. So I'd like to talk about, the amount of time that she's in there, because I think with the growth that Jeremy's made, I'd like to propose we consider like, hey, can we pull that back? Because she's already in your room, Miss Woodward, just kind of sitting back because he's being so successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited that we're talking about this, because he has been doing so great. And in reading, which is a strength for him for sure, writing, social studies, and science, he's really not needing that support at all, which is a huge celebration. He's still, as we've discussed, math is harder for him. So I mean, even if we could pull back and not have her providing that support during those other subjects, but just during math, which tends to be more of a trigger, I think that'd be a great move forward for him. What do you think?
I'm feeling a little bit nervous.
Sure.
He just loves Miss Becky.
I know.
So
we all
much.
Love Miss Becky. Yes.
But yeah, I want him, especially thinking about this transition to middle school, I want him to have less support. I just have a little fear about him kind of falling backwards, because I'm really grateful for all the progress he's made this year.
Yeah, he's made that progress, and I'm bringing it up because I think we consider like pushing him, like you brought up, like with middle school coming up. What questions do you have?
I guess one thing, given he does just adore Miss Becky, I'm just thinking about how this works. Like, how does that change happen, and what can I do at home too to kind of talk him through that? I just know changes can impact him, and I really want to make sure that we're supporting a difference in his day.
Well, after this meeting, I would write it up if we agree to the proposal and send it home, and then you'd have that 2 weeks to kind of think it over. We don't have to make a decision today, and and if you have questions come up once you drive home, just give me a ring or an email and we'll talk through it. I think if you felt good about it, we would start the conversations, at home. I can talk to him with Miss Becky in class. Absolutely. Like our schedule is going to change. I think we'd emphasize like you're still going to work with Miss Becky during math, because we don't want him to hear like things are changing and have that wall go up, right? We want him to hear pretty early on that like, hey, she's still going to be here during math, which is when, they're currently interacting the most. In reading, I was in there the other day and they didn't speak once.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing the teachers report is that, and what we've all kind of agreed on, is that there's been a lot of progress. Jeremy's really done a great job this year. And it's kind of that emotional, thing that happens when our kids become more independent. And like, I hear you want him to be supported, you want him to be successful, you don't want to like have that progress he's made go backwards. We don't want that either. And what I'm hearing from this conversation is he really doesn't need that support anymore. And so by keeping it in place, we're somewhat limiting his ability to be independent. So while Mr. Venas said, yes, you have the 2 weeks to kind of think about it, I would also like you to really kind of consider the fact that it's really no longer needed. And that's a really kind of a celebration. And it's not necessarily, we've always partnered together and tried to move and accommodate things that Jeremy needed. And so if we do this and we make this change, and maybe it's a little too much too soon, we can always have the flexibility to bring it back. We're not going to let him sit and fail and not do well before we make a proposal to bring that support back.
Yeah, that makes me feel way better.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to keep our eyes on Jeremy, but that graph too, like if that starts to go down, we want to put some supports back in place.
Yes.
Yeah.